Marcus had just returned home after serving in the military for several years. He was a Marine sniper, trained to remain calm under pressure, to think clearly, and to act with precision. His last deployment had been overseas, and he had faced some of the toughest situations imaginable. Despite all the challenges, Marcus had always remembered the lessons he learned in the Marines: patience, discipline, and respect for others. The morning was quiet, with the sun rising slowly over the small town where Marcus had grown up. Birds chirped in the distance, and the streets were calm. Marcus stepped out of his apartment to grab a coffee before heading to meet his family. He felt relieved to be back home, but also a little anxious. After months in a strict military routine, returning to civilian life was not always easy. Everything felt slower, calmer, and sometimes confusing. As Marcus walked down the street, he noticed a few people staring at him. He paid them little attention, focusing instead on the warm sunlight and the gentle breeze. Suddenly, he saw two police officers approaching quickly. Their expressions were serious, almost tense. Marcus instinctively stopped and raised his hand slightly, trying to show that he meant no harm. "Good morning, sir. We need to ask you a few questions," one of the officers said firmly. Marcus nodded politely and explained that he had just returned from the military. He mentioned his rank and his service record, hoping it would clarify any confusion. The officers exchanged glances but did not respond immediately. Marcus could feel a growing tension in the air. He had faced dangerous situations overseas, but this was different. This was unexpected, and it felt unfair. Still, he reminded himself of the lessons he learned as a Marine. Stay calm, stay polite, and do not make the situation worse. He spoke clearly and respectfully, answering every question as carefully as he could. Despite his calm approach, the officers seemed unconvinced. One of them reached for his handcuffs. Marcus's heart sank. He had never imagined that returning home could lead to something like this. He raised his hand slowly, staying composed. He knew that resisting or arguing angrily would only make things worse. "Please, I am a Marine," Marcus said calmly. "You are making a mistake." The officers nodded but continued with their actions. People passing by began to notice and stopped to watch. Some whispered to each other, unsure of what had happened. Marcus remained silent, only focusing on keeping his breathing steady and his posture relaxed. As the officers led him to the patrol car, Marcus thought about his family. He hoped they would not be too worried, and he knew he needed to stay calm until they arrived. He had faced life-threatening situations overseas, and in comparison, this felt strange but not impossible to handle. His training told him that patience and cooperation were the best tools in situations that seemed unfair. Inside the patrol car, Marcus was careful not to say anything that could escalate the situation. He observed the officers quietly, noticing the tension in their movements. He understood that mistakes could happen, that people could make assumptions based on incomplete information. He also knew that his calm attitude could help resolve the situation faster. The drive to the police station was tense. Marcus watched the passing streets, familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. The city seemed quiet, but his mind was active. He thought about the conversations he would have with his family, about how he could explain this incident, and about the steps that would follow. Through it all, Marcus remained calm. He kept his thoughts clear, focusing on what he could control. His military training had taught him to act with honor, even in moments of uncertainty. And though he was handcuffed and unsure of what would happen next, Marcus felt a quiet confidence. He knew that his integrity, patience, and discipline could guide him through this challenging day. As the car stopped in front of the police station, Marcus took a deep breath. He stepped out carefully, ready to face whatever came next, with the same calm and courage that had guided him through countless missions overseas. Marcus was led into the police station by two officers. The bright fluorescent lights reflected off the clean, tiled floors, making the place feel even colder than it already was. He remained calm, his hands still cuffed in front of him. Despite the situation, Marcus reminded himself that he had faced far worse circumstances overseas, and staying composed was the best way to handle this challenge. The officers brought him to a small waiting room. There were a few other people sitting quietly, reading or staring blankly at the walls. Marcus noticed their curious glances. Some seemed sympathetic, while others looked unsure of what to think. He kept his focus on the present, ignoring the whispers and stares. He knew that panicking or showing anger would not help. Detective Henry entered the room after a few minutes. He was a middle-aged man with a serious expression but calm eyes. He looked directly at Marcus and nodded politely. "Good morning, Marcus," he said. "We want to get a clear understanding of the situation." Marcus appreciated the respect in the detective's tone. He responded calmly, "Good morning, sir. I am happy to answer any questions you have." Detective Henry asked Marcus to explain what had happened outside. Marcus described the moment he was approached, how he had tried to explain who he was and how the misunderstanding had occurred. He spoke clearly and politely without anger, even though inside he felt frustrated. He knew that telling the story calmly would make a stronger impression. The detective listened carefully, taking notes. Occasionally, he looked up and asked for clarification, making sure he understood every detail. Marcus answered each question with honesty and patience. He mentioned his time in the Marines, his deployments, and his role as a sniper. He emphasized that he had always followed rules and respected authority. After a while, Detective Henry paused and looked thoughtful. He turned to the officers standing nearby. "We need to double-check his records immediately," he said. "If there has been a mistake, we must correct it as soon as possible." The officers nodded and began typing rapidly at a nearby computer. Marcus remained still, watching the process, his mind calm but alert. He knew that mistakes could happen, but he trusted that the truth would come out. While the officers worked, Marcus's family arrived at the station. His mother, father, and younger sister rushed toward him. Their faces showed worry and relief at the same time. Marcus's father spoke first. "Marcus, are you okay?" Marcus smiled slightly and nodded. "I'm fine, Dad. I just need to stay calm. The truth will be clear soon." His mother hugged him gently while his sister held his hand tightly. Marcus felt warmth and reassurance from their support, which helped him remain composed. Detective Henry approached the family and explained that Marcus had been mistakenly identified and that they were working to resolve the issue. He assured them that Marcus was cooperating fully and that they would clear up the misunderstanding quickly. Marcus's mother thanked him, appreciating his professionalism and care. After a short wait, the officers returned with verified information. Detective Henry reviewed the records and confirmed that Marcus had been wrongly arrested. The tension in the room eased and a sense of relief began to spread. Marcus remained respectful, allowing the officers to correct their mistake without confrontation. He understood that everyone was human and that errors could happen. Detective Henry turned to Marcus. "We sincerely apologize for the misunderstanding," he said. "You have handled this situation with respect and patience, and that deserves recognition." Marcus nodded. "Thank you, sir. I understand mistakes happen. I just hope this helps prevent similar situations in the future." His words were calm yet firm, showing his maturity and discipline. As Marcus prepared to leave the room, he reflected on what had happened. He realized that staying composed, speaking respectfully, and showing patience had turned a difficult moment into a manageable one. He understood that his training in the Marines had prepared him not only for combat, but also for moments like this, where courage and discipline were shown through calmness and respect. The officers escorted him to the exit, removing the handcuffs. Marcus stepped outside into the sunlight, feeling a mixture of relief and quiet pride. He knew that the experience had tested him in a different way, and he had passed. As he walked toward his family, he felt grateful for the support around him and ready for whatever the next steps would bring. After Marcus was released from the police station, he went home with his family. The drive was quiet at first as everyone reflected on what had just happened. His mother held his hand tightly, still feeling the tension of the morning. His father kept glancing at him, relief mixed with concern in his eyes. Marcus remained calm, speaking only when necessary, his voice steady and gentle. Once they reached the house, Marcus's younger sister brought him a glass of water. She looked at him with a mixture of worry and admiration. "Marcus, you stayed so calm. I don't think I could have done that," she said softly. Marcus smiled at her. "It is not easy," he replied, "but staying calm helps solve problems faster. Getting angry does not help anyone." His words reflected not just his training as a Marine, but also his deep understanding of human nature. Later that day, Marcus received a phone call from Detective Henry. The detective explained that the investigation was ongoing to ensure that the mistake would not happen again. Marcus appreciated the follow-up. He knew that accountability was important, and he felt respected by the way the detective handled the situation. It was unusual for law enforcement to reach out personally, and Marcus understood that it meant they valued fairness and justice. Meanwhile, news of the incident had quietly spread through the local community. Neighbors and friends called to check on Marcus, expressing their concern and support. Marcus was grateful for their kindness, but he remained humble. He knew that the focus should not be on the incident itself, but on the lessons it taught about patience, respect, and understanding. At the same time, the local Marine base had been informed of the situation. Colonel Davis, a senior officer who had served with Marcus, immediately took action. He reviewed Marcus's service record and confirmed his achievements and character. The colonel was impressed by Marcus's composure during the incident. He called headquarters to make sure that the matter was addressed quickly and correctly. Marcus had always respected Colonel Davis, and he felt reassured knowing that someone with experience and authority was supporting him. As the afternoon passed, Marcus took a moment to reflect quietly in his room. He thought about how quickly life could change. One moment he was returning home from service, enjoying the small comforts of family life. The next he was handcuffed and treated as if he had done something wrong. Marcus realized that calmness and discipline were not only tools for survival in combat, but also for navigating unexpected challenges in everyday life. That evening, Marcus's family sat together at the dinner table. There was a mixture of silence and conversation as everyone processed the day's events. Marcus spoke gently about his experiences overseas, sharing lessons he had learned about patience, courage, and respect for others. His words resonated with his family. They could see that Marcus's strength was not just in his training or skill, but in his character. Meanwhile, back at the police station, Detective Henry continued to review the case. He spoke with other officers and made notes about the procedures that had led to the mistake. Henry was determined that no one else would face a similar situation. He respected Marcus's patience and understood that the way Marcus handled the situation was a model for how citizens should be treated. As night fell, Marcus sat quietly on the porch, looking at the stars. The day had been challenging, but it had also shown him the power of patience and calmness. He felt grateful for his family, for his training, and for the people who had acted responsibly to correct the mistake. In that quiet moment, he understood that every challenge, no matter how difficult, could be met with integrity and dignity. Marcus knew that the story was far from over. His name and reputation mattered, and there were more steps to take to ensure that justice was fully recognized. But for now, he allowed himself to feel a quiet sense of relief. He had faced a stressful and unfair situation, yet he had maintained his honor. Marcus had proven not only to others but also to himself that true strength came from patience, respect, and calm action, even in moments of uncertainty. The news of Marcus's detainment reached the local Marine base by mid-morning. Colonel Davis was the first to hear about the incident. He had served with Marcus for several years and knew him as a dedicated and disciplined Marine. The colonel felt a mix of concern and disbelief. How could someone who had served his country with honor be treated this way? Without hesitation, he began making phone calls to clarify the situation. Colonel Davis first contacted the base commander. He explained the details he had received and emphasized Marcus's service record and character. The base commander immediately instructed that the incident be reviewed and resolved as quickly as possible. Marcus had always been reliable, disciplined, and respected by his peers. The idea that he had been handcuffed in his own community unsettled the leadership at the base. Meanwhile, word reached General Thomas, a 4-star general known for personally caring about the Marines under his command. The general was highly respected, not only for his leadership but also for his fairness and sense of responsibility. When he learned about Marcus, he immediately requested all reports and records related to the incident. The general wanted to understand exactly what had happened and ensure that justice was served. General Thomas reviewed Marcus's military record in detail. He saw Marcus's years of service, his deployments, and the commendations he had earned. He noted Marcus's role as a sniper, a position that required precision, calmness, and patience. The general knew that Marcus had faced dangerous situations overseas with courage and discipline. Seeing him treated unfairly back home was unacceptable in the general's eyes. By late morning, the general decided to take action personally. He contacted the local police department to arrange a meeting and clarify the situation. He wanted to ensure that Marcus's name and reputation were protected. More importantly, he wanted to express the respect and gratitude the military had for Marcus's service. The general believed that no Marine should feel dishonored or mistreated, especially after returning from deployment. Back at Marcus's home, his family received a call from Colonel Davis. The colonel explained that General Thomas was aware of the situation and would be involved in resolving it. Marcus's parents were relieved to hear this news. They had been worried, not only about Marcus's safety but also about his reputation. Knowing that senior military officials were stepping in gave them hope and confidence that the matter would be handled properly. Marcus himself remained calm during the day, focusing on his family and preparing mentally for what might happen next. He reflected on his time in the Marines, remembering the lessons he had learned about patience and perseverance. He knew that staying composed even in unexpected situations was one of his greatest strengths. Marcus understood that sometimes the most challenging battles were not the ones fought overseas, but the ones faced at home. By afternoon, arrangements were made for Marcus to attend a hearing where the misunderstanding would be addressed. General Thomas decided to personally attend the courtroom to ensure that Marcus's record and honor were recognized. The general's presence alone would send a clear message about respect, fairness, and accountability. Marcus's family prepared to accompany him, feeling reassured that the highest-ranking officials were involved. As Marcus prepared to leave for the hearing, he reflected on the chain of events. A simple misunderstanding had led to tension and worry, but it had also revealed the strength of support around him. From his family to Colonel Davis and now General Thomas, Marcus realized that respect, patience, and clear communication could help overcome even the most difficult situations. When he stepped into the car to head to the courthouse, Marcus felt a quiet determination. He would face the next stage with the same composure he had shown throughout the day. He knew that the outcome would not only affect him, but also set an example for how service members should be treated after returning home. Marcus took a deep breath and focused on the road ahead, confident that honor and truth would guide him through the challenge. Marcus arrived at the courthouse early in the afternoon, accompanied by his family. The building was large and imposing, with tall pillars and wide steps leading to the entrance. People moved quickly inside, some carrying papers, others speaking quietly in groups. Marcus remained calm, his posture straight, his expression steady. He had faced uncertainty before, and he knew that keeping composed would help him through this situation. As he entered the courtroom, he noticed the judge sitting at the bench, reviewing documents carefully. The courtroom was filled with a mixture of observers, lawyers, and court staff. Some looked curious, while others whispered quietly among themselves. Marcus's family found seats near the front, showing their support with gentle nods and reassuring smiles. Marcus felt a sense of comfort knowing they were there. The officers involved in his arrest were also present, sitting quietly near their lawyer. Marcus observed them calmly, understanding that mistakes could happen. He had no desire to confront or argue. He simply wanted the truth to be known. He remembered the lessons from his Marine training. Patience, respect, and clear thinking were his strongest tools. The judge called the session to order and began reviewing the case. Marcus stood respectfully, answering questions politely when asked. He explained the situation clearly, recounting the events outside his apartment and how the misunderstanding had occurred. His calm tone and precise words reflected the discipline he had learned during his years of service. Outside the courtroom, Colonel Davis and other Marine officials waited quietly. They had come to support Marcus and ensure that his record and reputation were respected. Their presence was a reminder that Marcus was not alone, and that his years of service were valued and recognized. Marcus felt a quiet sense of reassurance knowing that his efforts overseas had earned him such respect. As the hearing progressed, tension in the courtroom grew. The officers explained their perspective, admitting that there had been confusion and miscommunication. Marcus listened carefully, showing understanding while maintaining his dignity. He did not interrupt or argue. Instead, he focused on presenting the truth clearly and respectfully. Suddenly, the courtroom doors opened and General Thomas entered. His presence was commanding yet calm. Everyone in the room turned to look at him, sensing the importance of the moment. Marcus felt a wave of relief and surprise. The general's reputation as a fair and caring leader preceded him, and his arrival signaled a turning point in the hearing. General Thomas walked to the front of the courtroom and requested the judge to pause the proceedings temporarily. He addressed the court with a steady, confident voice. "I am here to clarify the situation regarding Marcus," he said. "He has served our country with honor and courage. The misunderstanding that led to his detainment must be corrected immediately." The general presented Marcus's military record in detail, explaining his years of service, his deployments, and his achievements. He emphasized Marcus's calmness, discipline, and professionalism. He also highlighted how Marcus had handled the misunderstanding with respect, patience, and composure. The courtroom listened intently, the atmosphere shifting from tension to respect. The judge nodded, reviewing the information presented by the general. The officers expressed regret for the mistake, and Detective Henry assured the court that procedures would be improved to prevent such incidents in the future. Marcus remained composed, feeling a sense of justice beginning to take shape. General Thomas then turned to Marcus and spoke directly to him. "Marcus, you have handled this situation with honor. On behalf of the military and all those who serve, I apologize for what happened. Your service and integrity are valued and respected." Marcus felt a deep sense of relief. The recognition from a 4-star general was not only an honor, but also a confirmation that he had remained true to his values throughout the ordeal. As the judge signaled that the case would be dismissed, Marcus's family stood smiling with relief. Marcus nodded respectfully to the court, feeling a mixture of gratitude and pride. He knew that the ordeal had tested him, but he had passed with dignity and composure. The courtroom was filled with a quiet sense of respect, as General Thomas continued to stand at the front. Marcus felt a mixture of relief and surprise at the general's presence. He had not expected such personal attention from a 4-star officer, and the gesture reminded him of the honor and discipline that defined the Marines. His family, seated nearby, watched in awe as the general addressed the judge and everyone in the room. General Thomas spoke clearly and firmly. "Marcus's record speaks for itself," he said. "He has served with courage, discipline, and honor." The events that occurred outside his apartment were unfortunate and completely avoidable. Marcus's actions during the misunderstanding have reflected the values we uphold in the military. His voice carried authority, but also fairness and sincerity. Marcus felt reassured that the truth was being recognized in a way that could not be ignored. The judge listened intently, reviewing the records presented by the general. The courtroom, once tense with curiosity, was now quiet and focused. Even the officers who had initially detained Marcus looked attentive, realizing the seriousness of the situation. General Thomas continued, explaining the mistakes in communication that had led to the wrongful detainment. He highlighted Marcus's composure during the entire ordeal, emphasizing that it had prevented the situation from escalating further. Detective Henry stepped forward to confirm the corrections in the official records. He explained the steps the department would take to ensure similar mistakes would not happen again. Marcus observed quietly, his posture straight, appreciating the professionalism and responsibility shown by everyone involved. He understood that this was more than just a correction. It was a recognition of his patience, respect, and integrity. After the formal explanations, General Thomas turned to Marcus personally. "Marcus," he said, his voice calm and respectful, "I apologize for the distress you have experienced. Your service has been extraordinary, and your conduct in this situation has been exceptional. You have represented the values of the Marines not just in the field, but here at home as well." Marcus felt a sense of deep gratitude. The acknowledgement from such a high-ranking officer reinforced that his calm and disciplined behavior had been noticed and appreciated. The general then addressed the courtroom again. "It is important that all citizens, especially those who have served our country, are treated with fairness and respect. Marcus's experience should serve as a reminder that our communities must work together to prevent misunderstandings and ensure justice for everyone." His words resonated through the room. Marcus felt proud, not for himself, but for the message that fairness and respect were being reinforced in the community. The judge nodded in agreement and formally dismissed the case. The tension in the courtroom shifted into relief and respect. People began to whisper quietly to each other, some nodding, others shaking their heads in disbelief at how the situation had been resolved. Marcus's family stood, hugging him gently, their faces filled with relief and pride. Marcus smiled softly, appreciating their support and understanding. As they prepared to leave the courtroom, Marcus felt a new sense of clarity. The events of the day had tested his patience, discipline, and integrity in ways he had never imagined. Yet he had remained composed and respectful throughout. He realized that true strength was not just measured in the battlefield or in skill, but also in the ability to handle unexpected challenges with dignity. Outside the courthouse, the sunlight felt warmer and brighter. Marcus's family walked beside him, sharing quiet words of support and encouragement. The officers involved in the incident approached and apologized personally, shaking Marcus's hand respectfully. He accepted their apologies with calm dignity, understanding that mistakes could happen and that forgiveness was part of resolving conflicts. Marcus looked at his family, at the officers, and at the courthouse one last time before they left. He understood that the day had been about more than just correcting a mistake. It had been a lesson in patience, integrity, and respect. It had shown him that even in challenging situations, calmness and honesty could guide the way. Marcus felt a quiet sense of pride, knowing that he had upheld his values and emerged with dignity and honor. After leaving the courthouse, Marcus felt a deep sense of relief, but he knew the day was not entirely over. The support he had received from his family, Colonel Davis and General Thomas, had been overwhelming, yet he wanted to ensure that the misunderstanding would not happen to anyone else. He also wanted to reflect on what had occurred, to understand the lessons hidden in the unexpected ordeal. The drive home was quiet. Marcus's family spoke softly among themselves, occasionally glancing at him with admiration. His younger sister broke the silence. "Marcus, I have never seen anyone stay so calm when things were so unfair. You taught me something important today." Marcus smiled, appreciating her words.
"Sometimes staying calm is the strongest choice," he said gently.
"It allows you to see clearly and act in a way that solves problems instead of making them worse." Once home, Marcus took a moment to sit quietly in his living room. The sunlight streamed through the windows, casting warm patterns on the floor. He thought about how quickly the morning had changed his life. One moment he had been walking outside for coffee. The next he had been handcuffed and taken to a police station. Yet through it all, he had remained composed, and the truth had come to light. Colonel Davis had stayed in contact throughout the day, checking to ensure that Marcus was safe. Marcus appreciated the colonel's dedication. He knew that the support of someone experienced and responsible could make a world of difference during difficult times. Marcus reflected on their conversations about discipline, honor, and patience. Those lessons had guided him through the courtroom and the police station. Meanwhile, General Thomas had sent a formal statement to the Marine base, recognizing Marcus's composure and professionalism. The general had praised Marcus for embodying the values of the military even in civilian life. Marcus felt honored by this acknowledgement. He had always served with dedication, but hearing such words from a four-star general reinforced the importance of integrity and patience. Later in the evening, Marcus sat with his family for dinner. The mood was light, with smiles and laughter replacing the tension of earlier hours. His parents expressed their pride, and his sister asked countless questions about the courtroom and the general's words. Marcus answered patiently, understanding that his experience could serve as a lesson for those around him. As the night grew darker, Marcus went outside to the small porch at the back of his house. The stars were bright in the clear sky, and the quiet of the night brought a sense of peace. He thought about the people who had helped him, the officers who corrected their mistake, the detective who had investigated carefully, the colonel who had supported him, and the general who had personally intervened. Each of them had shown respect, fairness, and responsibility, and Marcus felt grateful for their actions. He also thought about how the incident had reminded him that life could be unpredictable. Challenges did not always come from the battlefield. Sometimes they appeared in the most ordinary moments. Marcus realized that the qualities he had cultivated in the Marines, patience, integrity, and calmness, were valuable not only in service but also in everyday life. The next morning, Marcus received a call from the police department. Detective Henry wanted to follow up and ensure that Marcus had returned home safely. Marcus appreciated the call. He knew that accountability was important and that the detective's efforts would help prevent similar incidents in the future. Marcus spoke calmly and respectfully, expressing gratitude for the detective's diligence and for the steps being taken to improve procedures. As the day progressed, Marcus returned to his routines. He spent time with his family, enjoying simple moments of conversation and laughter. Yet he remained aware of the lessons from the previous day. He understood that patience and calmness combined with honesty and respect could transform difficult situations into opportunities for understanding and growth. By evening, Marcus felt a quiet pride. He had faced a situation that could have been frustrating, unfair, or even humiliating. Instead, he had remained composed, respectful, and strong. The recognition from General Thomas and the support from those around him reminded him that integrity and honor were always noticed, even in the most challenging circumstances. Marcus knew that the experience had not only tested him, but had also strengthened him, preparing him for whatever life might bring next. The morning after the courthouse incident, Marcus felt a quiet sense of relief. The official records had been corrected and the officers had formally apologized. More importantly, the support of his family, Colonel Davis and General Thomas, had reassured him that justice and respect could prevail, even in difficult situations. Marcus knew that the day's events would remain with him as a lesson in patience, courage, and integrity. He spent the morning reflecting on the past 24 hours. The experience had been stressful, yet it had shown him the power of composure. Marcus thought about how a single mistake could escalate if handled poorly, and how staying calm and respectful had helped everyone see the truth. He realized that his training in the Marines had prepared him not only for combat, but also for unexpected challenges in civilian life. By late morning, Marcus received a call from General Thomas's office. The general wanted to personally thank him for his patience and discipline. Marcus was honored. He listened carefully as the general praised his actions, emphasizing that his behavior reflected the highest values of the military. "Marcus," the general said, "your courage is not only on the battlefield but also in the way you handle challenges with respect and dignity. You have shown us all what true strength is." Marcus felt humbled and proud at the same time. Later in the day, Marcus met with Detective Henry and the officers involved in his detainment. The conversation was calm and respectful. The officers apologized again, expressing regret for the misunderstanding and for any stress they had caused him or his family. Marcus accepted their apologies graciously, understanding that mistakes could happen and that acknowledging them was the first step toward improvement. He also offered suggestions on how such situations could be avoided in the future, showing that even in challenging circumstances, cooperation could lead to positive outcomes. In the afternoon, Marcus's family gathered around him at home. His parents and sister expressed their pride in the way he had handled everything. His father said, "Marcus, you have shown us what it means to stay calm and strong, even when things are unfair." His mother added, "We are grateful not just for your safety, but for the way you handled yourself with honor." Marcus smiled, feeling warmth and gratitude for their support. Marcus also thought about the broader impact of his experience. He realized that his story could inspire others to remain patient and respectful, even in stressful situations. He thought about fellow veterans, friends, and neighbors who might face misunderstandings or unfair treatment. Marcus understood that staying composed, speaking honestly, and showing integrity could influence people positively and bring about justice. That evening, Marcus returned to his small porch looking at the clear sky and bright stars. The world felt calm and peaceful. He reflected on the lessons of the past days. Patience could prevent conflict, respect could foster understanding, and integrity could guide actions even in unexpected challenges. Marcus felt grateful for the support around him and for the opportunity to demonstrate these qualities. As he sat quietly, Marcus thought about the future. He knew that challenges would come again, both in ordinary life and in moments he could not predict. Yet he also knew that he had the strength, discipline, and calmness to face them. He understood that honor was not only earned through achievements but also maintained through the way one responds to difficulty. Later, as Marcus joined his family for a simple dinner, there was laughter and light conversation. The day had begun with stress and uncertainty, but it ended with relief, pride, and a renewed sense of purpose. Marcus felt a strong connection to his family, his fellow Marines, and the community that had supported him. As the night drew to a close, Marcus reflected on the entire experience. He realized that even when faced with confusion or unfair treatment, staying calm, honest, and respectful could lead to resolution and understanding. He had faced a situation that could have been humiliating or frustrating, but instead he had emerged with dignity, strengthened by the support of those who valued fairness and justice. Marcus finally went to bed with a quiet sense of peace. The ordeal had tested him, but it had also reinforced his values. He knew that his story was not just about a mistake corrected or a misunderstanding resolved. It was about the power of integrity, patience, and respect. Marcus had remained true to himself, and in doing so, he had shown everyone around him that true strength comes from the courage to stay calm and honorable, no matter the circumstances.